Hey guys, and welcome to summer of 2023, where you can buy the Bambu P1S made by the sharpest kids in China, or the Prusa MK3 made by a bunch of guys in the Czech Republic that like beer. Which one do you buy? And that's a good question, and honestly, probably not one we're going to answer in this video. You guys can fight it out down in the comments, but I did want to give you my thoughts on each one of these printers. I have a Bambu X1 Carbon. When the P1S came out, I thought I'd pick one of these up as well. I am very happy with my X1 Carbon. I don't know what to expect with this guy. I'm also really happy with this Prusa MK3. This printer has served me incredibly well. I picked this up in kit form 4 years ago, probably around 4 years ago. Prior to this, I had an ANET A8 that I did pretty extensive modifications to, but was largely the same printer. It's an i3 clone. So I've been in 3D printing for about 7 years. I've learned a lot along the way. I want to share some of that with you guys with regards to these two printer choices and just like what's kind of going on in the industry right now. It honestly boggles my mind that we can get a pre-assembled printer at the level of what I believe this P1S to be for 700 bucks, and one of these assembled costs 900. I know there's a big difference in how these machines are made. China has manufacturing down to a science. A lot of people will, kind of complain about the quality of things that come out of China. I don't think that's fair. I'm not here to tell you about how great China is, but I think they get a bad rap from a manufacturing perspective. If you go to a manufacturer in the United States or elsewhere in the world and you say you want a product made, they're probably willing to produce that product for you at some price point from a quality level of, say, I don't know, 5 to 10, where 5 is, it's not so hot, but it works and it's pretty cheap, to 10, where everything is top notch. Your market is going to be really limited, but it is a top quality product. You can go to China and you can get something produced on those same quality levels from 5 to 10. They will also produce products for you on quality levels like 1 to 4. And when I say 1 to 4, I'm going to define 1 as being a product that looks like what the thing was supposed to be, but it doesn't even work. It's like a brick in a box, but is kind of looks like the thing you bought. I believe that they would make that for you. To under a 5, a 4, where they cut corners they darn well know they shouldn't have cut, and there's a good chance it might not even work out of the box. And even if it does work out of the box, it's probably not going to work for very long. And I think part of the problem really is us as consumers. We want everything to cost what the one would cost to make that is like a 2 or a 3, but we want the quality of a 7 or an 8. So I'm just saying, ease up a little bit on, bashing manufacturing in China. They're just giving, vendors in the US, vendors elsewhere in the world, more options to choose from. And those vendors are sometimes choosing levels of production quality that we wouldn't really want. That's not the case with Bambu Labs from what I've seen so far. The quality of my X1 Carbon, I would say I'd put it up probably around a 7 or an 8 on that scale of 1 to 10. And I'm not going to go into it in too deep on this video or this channel, but I don't like the idea of my data going out to a company that is based in China. I'll admit that it's not the best thing. It's not that I don't necessarily trust companies in China. It's just that if you're based in China and the government says, hey, we'd like your data, they're going to say, here's our data. That's not going to happen with Prusa. That's not going to happen with other companies that are based, in most other non-third world manufacturing countries. If you're manufacturing in the United States or somewhere in the UK or in the European Union, you can probably expect some higher standards of quality for your data. Again, it's not necessarily a reflection on Bambu. It's just they're a Chinese company, and I wouldn't trust that anything I give them is not going to end up in the hands of the government. Does that make it a non-starter to buy this printer? I don't know. For some of you, it might. But I think the value proposition that's offered on this printer or the P1P, you got to at least look at it. Yeah, that's enough. We might say some more about that as we start digging into this, but you guys have already listened to me drone on for a couple minutes, I'm sure already now. Let's get a box cutter and open this thing up. All right, I'm gonna move my lovely Mark 3S out of the way. All right, I feel like I should mention, this printer was not provided to me. If you don't believe me, just take a look at the subscriber count on this channel. Bambu Labs is not sending me a free printer to review. I paid for this printer with my own money. I mentioned I own an X1 Carbon. I also paid for that printer with my own money. I have not received any of the things you're gonna be looking at in this video today for free. I'm not saying I turned it down if somebody wanted to send me something for free, but this printer was not free, nor was that Prusa MK3, nor was my X1 Carbon that you might hear me talk about in this video as well. So just wanted to get that out there. All right, probably also worth mentioning, this is not the type of video I normally do on this channel. Normally I do functional print every Friday, so if you're just watching this video to see me open up this P1S and check it out, hey, awesome, welcome to the channel. But if you're into functional prints, and when I say functional prints, I mean prints that actually do something, not like, 15 colors of benchies and whatever the newest trinket on the front page of Thingiverse is. I mean like actual engineering parts that do stuff, whether they fix something around the house or my shop here that's broken, or brand new designs from scratch. So if you're into that, I'm not gonna say hit the subscribe button. You probably wanna go look at some of my other stuff, but check out some of my other videos, and if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button. I also don't normally stand in front of the camera. I'm more of a behind the camera person. I'm not afraid to be in front of the camera, I just normally don't. And I often do a number of takes in my regular videos before I'm happy with them. I'm not gonna do that because, I don't want to take this printer out of the box and then put it back in the box to get a better shot. So if I run on a little bit too long in places, or I talk myself into a corner, you guys are just gonna have to deal with it. Worth mentioning, Bambu does this thing where the camera, I don't have a way to get the camera up real high for you guys, but they do this thing where they put the printer in a bag and then tape the sides of the bag to the box. It was a little bit perplexing when I got the X1 Carbon, how the heck do you get it out? But now that I've done it once before and I see they did the same thing here, I do get it. It actually does make it easy to get the printer out of the box. You just have to you have to trust the plastic, because we're actually gonna lift the printer out of the box with the plastic. So let me get these off the side here. I'm gonna get this down on the floor, I think, to lift this out. I think if I lift it out from here, I'd have to be 2 feet taller. That's what I mean about trusting the plastic. Normally I wouldn't lift something out of a box like this. And this thing's not light. If you're in the market for a lightweight printer, this is probably not the printer you want to buy. This thing does have some gravity to it. I bet you it weighs twice as much as my Prusa MK3. Nothing in the box, because you don't get any extra goodies with this. When I bought my X1 Carbon, I did buy it with an AMS, and I think it came with 3 small rolls of filament. So if you buy just a P1S with no AMS, I guess you don't get any stuff with it. Unless, I guess it could be in the printer. Let's see. Get stuff out of the way for you guys. And if I remember correctly, now we got to cut the top of the bag or peel it apart. There we go. So it does look like it arrived in one piece. This printer, these sides, I noticed on other reviews, they actually look metal on camera. They're not, they're plastic, but it's a nice plastic. I haven't done a ton of research on Bambu Lab, but I was kind of curious just, where these guys kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't even paying attention. I was very happy with my Prusa MK3 that I've been using for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, these guys were getting tons of press on everyone's channels. So I thought I'd check it out, and I did a little bit of reading. Come on, get off there. Did a little bit of reading, and apparently most of their engineers are ex-DJI guys. And if you're not into the drones, you might not know who that is, but DJI is a Chinese-based company that produces consumer-level drones. the things we fly around with cameras on them that take pictures up in the sky, fly them around for sport. I do own a couple of them. They're nice machines. There's a similar parallel there in that there's a community that only wants to do like open source. I've built everything on my own, wrote my own firmware for the drone controller, and then people that just want like a turnkey drone. All right, we got a quick start guide on the top. Looks like it's just giving us the basics here. Let's see, tool head unlock, remove the cardboard from the tool head. I guess really the first thing we got to do is just get the rest of the plastic off of here. All right, to grab you guys out of the tripod so you could get a better look at the machine. It's really hard to kind of get a feel for texture and stuff over a video, but the quality of the materials is very nice, and it looks like it has arrived in one piece. I'm not seeing any immediate damage to it. I believe the top of this is glass. I believe the door is glass, but like I mentioned, everything else is plastic on this guy. All right, I'll probably speed this up for you guys, getting the plastic off, because I am really nitpicky about getting the plastic off in a way that doesn't leave any tape residue or that I don't accidentally make any cuts anywhere, and it's gonna take me a while, so we'll speed this up. All right, it looks like we did get something with it. I don't know if that is a roll of filament or if there's just accessories in there. There is a box. When I bought the X1 Carbon, the AMS unit was actually inside the printer and came out through the top. I'm guessing it's probably the same deal with this. We should probably take the top off and take out whatever that stuff is through the top. All right, we got some foam here in the top, and okay, that comes right out. This one comes right out. You guys thought I was kidding about being like super particular about opening stuff up like this, didn't you? Yeah, I wasn't. I'm definitely not the type to rush through unboxing something or checking something out for the first time and potentially damaging it. What's in the box? What's in the box? We do get filament, and they shipped it on one of their reusable full-size spools, which is really nice, even though it's only a tiny bit of filament. These spools that they give you, at least I'm assuming it's the same thing. I got, I think, 3 spools with the AMS unit on my X1 Carbon. They are reusable. The spools actually unlock, and you can buy just the refill filament that goes in the center and then twist the spool back together. Now, these have RFID tags on them, so I guess unless you want to rip the tag off, you can really only use, and it even says, see, this is an RFID tag up here, and it says PLA Basic on it. So you could rip that RFID tag off and put whatever filament you want on here and just tell the printer what you're using. And I guess, now that I'm saying that, this is a P1S, so I don't have an AMS, so the printer does not know what filament I'm using. At least I don't think so. I don't think there's any way for the printer to read this RFID tag. I think this only automates the process if you have an AMS. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, but I don't think there's any way for the printer to read the spool without an AMS unit. So I guess you could put whatever you want on the spool. And I should mention, if you're not already familiar with Bambu Lab products, you're not locked into their filament. You can use whatever filament you want. It's just that if you are loading it into an AMS, and you buy their filament, it automatically sets the filament type and sets the correct settings. If you're using your own filament, and you can use whatever you want, you just need to make sure you tell their software what type of filament you're using. There's generic profiles for all of the major types of filament. I've run Hatchbox and Sunlu and SaneSmart, and probably some other brand I'm already forgetting in my X1 Carbon, and just used the basic profiles that I tweaked a little bit just to bring the speeds down, and had no issues. All right, also in the box we have a piece of PTFE tubing, a power cord, a disclaimer and safety guidelines. That's going to be a fun read later, I'm sure. The screen, and I think this is the filament spool holder. And oh, I don't think there's anything in that. What do we have in this box? In this box we have, oh, they do give you some nice spares. So we have, looks like a spare 0.4 nozzle and heat block, some miscellaneous hardware for scraper. Oh, these are the, there's a little piece in the printer that it cleans the nozzle off. The nozzle moves back and forth across this to clean it before it prints. I think these are spares for that. More screws. Very fancy looking, these are grease. Fancy packets. Lubricant grease. All right, so I think that is all we get. So let me set this aside, and I'll bring you out of the tripod again. All right, so inside the printer, it looks like we have one of their gold-colored textured PEI sheets. I think this guy's brand new. I think they were shipping an older version of a textured sheet before. I have a third-party textured PEI sheet in my X1 Carbon that I really like. Been meaning to talk about it on the channel. I'll probably do that soon. But I think this one is supposed to be better than the textured PEI sheet that they were shipping with their name on it before. I guess we'll find out. I did mention before this video ends, we're gonna get this guy all the way up and running, and we're gonna run a functional print on this guy, and then run the same print on my Prusa MK3S. We'll compare print times, we'll compare the quality of the print, and we'll even take a brief look at the software for each. But looks like the next thing we got to do is get this styrofoam out of the bottom and probably unlock some stuff. I know there was like a whole base in the bottom of my X1 Carbon that I had to take out with some screws. I don't know if that's the same case here or not. Let me get you back in the tripod, and we'll see what the next steps are here. What I don't want to do is pull too hard on anything that looks like it might be attached in some other fashion. Okay, well that side comes right out. Oh, there we go. Okay, that one comes out too. And is this just loose in here? No, it is actually attached to our heated bed. Very shiny. The texture doesn't look as pronounced on this sheet as the third-party one that I have. I'd be really curious to see how this guy works. All right, let's see. There's foam underneath. There's foam underneath in the back. I don't want to go ripping stuff apart. I think we have, yeah, you know what? There's 3 orange arrows in here pointing at machine screws. It looks like I have to take out. Let me show you. All right, let's see if we can get it to focus down there. We've got one here, we've got one over here, and we've got one in the back here. Basically where the lead screws are in the machine. So let me see if they included a tool, and we'll get those machine screws out. It's not like I don't have the appropriate tool for this, but I do want to tell you guys if we got the right stuff. And we got 2 different ones in here. I'm going to guess it's the bigger one. Yep, it's the bigger of the 2 that you get in the box. And taking it out, it feels like it's probably a self-tapping screw into plastic. It doesn't feel like I'm loosening something that is in metal. All right, so initial thoughts looking inside the printer while I'm taking these screws out. A lot of similarities to the X1 Carbon. I see we have the same part cooling fan, the same LED light. The camera looks the same, but I know it's not. That's one of the things that I was a little disappointed in looking at the specs on this printer. I wish they had done the same camera that's in the X1 Carbon. That's a really nice camera. All right, so that's the 3 screws that were down here. I'm not going to rip this stuff out of here. My assumption is that we just need to remove those so that the printer can lift the bed up. I don't think we should go prying at anything. There's a piece of foam back here at the entrance to the poop chute. Grabbed you guys out of the tripod again. Looks like what we've got to do next is just cut the zip ties that are tying the tool head here to the back frame of the printer, as well as around these carbon fiber rods. Just a quick glance up here at the tool head. It looks like we have the same cable chain and cable setup as in the X1 Carbon. I'm surprised how many features of the X1 Carbon they were able to take and include at this price point versus what the P1P costs, especially when you consider that you're getting the door and the enclosure and lid and everything as well. I don't see any reason to purchase a P1P at this point. I imagine they'll continue offering it just because it is at a lower price point. But I can't see purchasing a P1P when you can get a P1S for not that much money more. And while I've got you out of the tripod, it looks like we have the same sort of like rubber feed through here in the back of the printer that we have on the X1 Carbon as well. There is the exit to our poop chute, and this would be where the buffer tube was if we had gotten this printer with an AMS. Our power cord goes down there. For some reason, this zip tie has a big orange tag with nothing on it. I don't know what that means. All right, what's left? Let's see, we've got a piece of tape here. Ah, that's where the SD card goes. I think there's an SD card in there. There is, and it looks like we get the finest in no name, no label SD cards with this. All right, we've got a piece of what looks like that tape that you'd find in a first aid kit holding down the cable for our screen. And presumably we put the screen on. And here's our screen. And this is probably the biggest downside of this printer is the screen on this. It's not that it's that bad. Well, I don't know. I'm sure it's probably sufficient. It's just the screen on the X1C is really nice, whereas I think this is just sufficient. But you know what? I really hardly ever use the screen on my X1 Carbon. I guess I do tap it often to see what the status of the print is, like at what percentage we are. And I do sometimes set the filament in the AMS with it, but you can do all that stuff in their app. And it's probably easier to do it in the app. It's just, I did it on the screen the first time because I didn't even have the app, and then I kept doing that because that's what I did the first time. So I have a feeling I'm probably going to be using the app for just about everything because the real estate on this screen doesn't look too good, and I've not heard good things about the UI, but I'll let you know. This looks pretty self-explanatory how this goes in. Looks like there's only one way I can plug this guy in. Looks like we are facing the right way. This guy also doesn't pivot. The screen on the X1 Carbon pivots back and forth, so you can either view it like if the printer was at eye height, at eye level, like up on a shelf, you could see it, or if it's down lower than you can tilt it up. Looks like we get one angle with this, and if you don't like it, Too bad. All right, I think we're in. Got some sort of sticker on the tool head that doesn't appear to be doing anything at all. I don't know why that was on there. We're getting really close to plugging this in, but you know what? Before we do that, oh yeah. You know what? We got one more piece of tape that I see inside. I think there is actually a filter behind a door in here. I don't know if you guys are going to see it on camera or not. There's another piece of that first aid kit tape in here. And I've never actually opened this up on my X1 Carbon, but I think there is a filter behind door number 1. Yes, and it is heavy. I think that is actually, I think it's activated charcoal in there. So nice to see they didn't skimp out on that. All right, I think I got that back on there properly. And I think we're ready to plug this in. I don't see anything left to take off. Part of me feels like I should probably check the instruction manual, but nah, let's plug it in. All right, we're plugged in. I'm gonna flip the switch, just doing one last quick cursory glance. I'm gonna leave the top off. All right, I was about to flip this guy on, and I see we have like this piece of tape up here in the front that's kind of loose on this end. And on the other side it says output 5 volts, 1.5 amps, looks like a typical USB connector. I don't know if that's the port where maybe the camera or the light's plugged in, or if there's some other accessory option up here in the front. Let me know down in the comments below if you know what's going on there. It's like a piece of black cloth sticky tape. It's definitely stuck down on this side, loose on this side. Yeah, let me know if you know what that is. All right, I know, turn it on already. Here we go. Screen's coming on. Before use, please make sure that you have read the user manual carefully. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Before use, please make sure that you have removed the screw fixed to the hotbed. I think we did that. Select your region. North America. All right, I skipped a couple pages there in the setup because there's a QR code on the screen for setting up the printer, and I think even once I set it up and register it in the app, you guys can still use that QR code to access it. So yeah, didn't really want that in the video. Okay, now we are at self-test. Finally, let's run the self-test routine to check the status of your printer. And I'm gonna click start, and it's probably gonna go through, I guess, a self-test. I have this sitting on a workbench that is not level, and the surface of it is not even, so I'm not sure how that's gonna go. This thing isn't rocking back and forth, so let's see what happens. Self-testing. Oh. Do I dare try and take the other one out? All right, it's doing its bed vibrating routine. All right, while it's doing this, one thing I will mention, since it's printed right on the front of the our heated bed here, the volume of this printer is 256 by 256 by 256, which is the same as the P1P and the X1 Carbon. The volume on the Prusa MK3S, I believe, is 220 by 250 by 250, I think. I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody will correct me down in the comments. Long story short, it's smaller than the volume on this guy. Not by a tremendous amount. 256 by 256 by 256 is about 10 inches cubed. So, you know, 10 inches in the X and Y and 10 inches in the Z. I'll say that actually has come in handy for a number of prints that I've done on the X1 Carbon that I was not able to do on my Prusa MK3S. In fact, there's a couple things that I had designed, not realizing that I was past the size limit, and then couldn't run those jobs, and I knocked those out when I got the X1 Carbon. It's actually shaking the whole table now. It's going through, I think, resonant frequencies. It started at a really low frequency that was actually shaking this whole workbench, and is now up at a much higher frequency that's not shaking the workbench but is vibrating the printer. I'm not 100% certain, but I think what's going on when it does this like resonant frequency test thing is learning about the platform that it is sitting on, how tight its own belts are, and also any unique resonance in this specific printer, like this actual P1S versus potentially another P1S. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it's doing. This is taking a while. I probably could have gone and made a coffee while we're waiting for this. It's still saying self-testing, and this is at least the second time that it's gone through like a frequency sweep. All right, I had a coffee and cleaned up the workbench, and the self-test is finally done. It says self-test complete, your printer is ready, enjoy printing, smiley face. Finish. All right, and now we have a very basic status screen that looks like it's giving us the temperature of the hot end and the bed, and it says 100%. 100% what? I don't know. All right, I grabbed the camera because there's a high-pitched whine coming from somewhere, and I don't know where. Sounds like it could be a fan, but I don't see any fans turning. That one is not running. Maybe it does sound like it's coming from over here on this side of the printer. Let me take my microphone off and put it right down here. So that's kind of annoying. You know, you're not going to hear it if there's any other noise in the room, but if the printer's the only thing in the room making noise, you are going to hear that. All right, so this thing is saying it's ready to go. Let's see, we're missing the build plate. And let's get the lid on this guy. You know, the sound coming from the printer, I would say, is comparable to the sound I would expect to come from a laptop or a desktop computer. It's not so loud that it's like, what the heck is that noise? It's just, there's definitely something on that's making noise. That's how I would describe it. Oh, you know what? We have one more thing we have to do on this one before we're ready to print. We have to put the filament spool holder on the back. All right, guys, looks like I've already lost the filament roll holder. I'm sure it's here somewhere, but if I can't find it, maybe one of you guys could set your phone down and come stick your finger out to hold the roll of filament when we get to the test portion. Ah, there it is. So it looks like, let's see, it says spool holder assembly holes, and it looks like one of them already has a screw in it. I guess we removed that screw, and then it looks like we need to add a screw here as well. Well, this bag says for extruder, so I'm guessing that's not it. I don't see any other screws in here. I don't know what screws we're supposed to use. This tool fits this one. It's actually in there really tight. What I want to do is take this one out and see if it fits in the other side, and then at least we'll know what we're looking for. All right, and that does fit. It looks like it's the same machine screw, so yeah, I don't know where it is. Let me check the other package quick. Ah, here we go. I found it. So it looks like actually we don't reuse that screw. This looks longer. Yeah, these screws are longer, and that makes sense. That way we get the same amount of thread engagement that you get without the thickness of the spool holder on there. All right, now that we've got this guy all unpacked and set to go, I've got the Prusa back up on the workbench. Let's take a minute and just talk about the key design differences between these printers. I'm not going to go into my opinion on each, at least not yet, but just the key design differences. Obviously, the P1S has an enclosure. The Mark III series and the Mark IV series does not. You can get an enclosure for the Mark IV that probably fits the Mark III too, but there is an extra charge for it. It doesn't come with it. The other huge difference between these printers is the way that they operate. The Bambu Lab P1S and I think all of their printers that are released are Core XY printers. And in a Core XY printer, the tool head moves in the X and the Y. So it's probably easier to show you on the Prusa. This is your X axis that I'm moving the tool head back and forth in now. This is the Y axis here, and the Z axis is the tool head going up and down. In the Prusa, the tool head moves in the X and the Z axis, but not the Y. In the Y axis, the bed goes back and forth. We'll talk about why that really is a difference in a second, but in the Bambu Lab, the tool head moves in the XY, so the tool head can position itself, albeit at the same height, but anywhere in this two-dimensional space up here, at any point up here. And the heated bed moves up and down in the Z axis. Why does that matter? Well, the big difference is in acceleration speed. So with our bed moving back and forth, anything that we're printing, as well as the weight of the whole bed itself, is going back and forth. So there's a limit to how fast we can move this guy, which is one of the big differences in speed between a classic i3 style printer and a Core XY printer. And this is not unique to Bambu Lab. Any Core XY printer out there from any manufacturer is going to have that as an advantage, where you're only moving the weight of the tool head around for your XY moves, and your Z moves are never going to be that fast, right? I mean, that's, we're really only moving the bed when we're making a layer change, or if we are Z hopping, from one part of a print to another. So we don't move that much in the Z axis, but we're moving in the X and the Y axis constantly. So this guy's constantly going back and forth. Not a big deal on the X axis. We're only moving the tool head, but that Y axis, yeah. Every time we move that axis, we're starting and stopping all of the weight of this bed. Nothing wrong with that. It's just we got to go slower to get the same result. What are the big differences? I guess the screen on this one is down here on the bottom, and the screen on this one is up here at the top. This guy is definitely a lot more portable. I can pick this, it's not light, but I can pick this guy up by the top of the frame, carry it around with me no problem. This one, it is heavier for sure, but the big difference is it's awkward. I got to bear hug the thing to lift it and move it around, and the glass top isn't attached. So yeah, if part of your use case is picking the printer up and moving it from room to room or table to table, I'd definitely rather be moving the Prusa around. Otherwise, yeah, I guess there's not really any huge design differences between the two. Yes, I know there's a huge difference in the feature set and how lots of other stuff on the printer works, but I'm talking like broad strokes. Key design differences, I think that's all of them. All right, let's actually make something. I said at the beginning of the video that we were going to do a functional print with each one of these printers, and we are. We're not making any benchies. That's not what this channel is about. This is a functional printing channel. On a typical video here on this channel, I take a look at the need for something or something that needs to be repaired. We cover the design and we do the actual print and then demonstrate it. We're going to do the same thing, and I have an idea for a real quick one that shouldn't take long to do. So let me make some room here on the bench and grab some stuff. All right, this is my ancient Hoover vacuum cleaner, and for as long as I can remember, it has been missing the accessory brush. I picked one up, but I didn't buy one from Hoover because I didn't want a crappy plastic one. I wanted a nice natural bristle brush. I think it's probably horsehair if I had to guess, but I don't know. And of course, you know, not being from Hoover, it doesn't fit. I didn't expect it to. I thought, hey, you know, maybe there's a chance I'll get lucky, but if I'm not lucky, I know exactly what I can do, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to design an adapter and print it on both of these machines that connects these two together. And based on the OD of each of these, I think we'll probably design the adapter to go into the inside of this one as well as the inside of this one. So let me get some measurements. All right, and both of these guys are tapered, so that is going to make the design for this a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. So let's go design. All right, and here is the design that I came up with for this. And I'll just touch on a couple key points in here. I designed this to print in this orientation, so this would be the face down on the print bed. And the reason for that is we have this bevel here that I have into the design for our sort of connecting ring that sticks out, so it's easy to pull this guy off if we do want to get it out of either the hose or the brush. And the bevel on the top is really more decorative than anything else. It comes into the specific diameter because this distance here is the thickness of the piping on the brush attachment. So this end's the hose, this end is the brush. So if it seats all the way down, basically this face will mate with the face, you know, on the bottom of the pipe piece for the brush. I doubt it's going to go all the way down on, but if it does, they are actually the same size. Both ends of this are tapered as well, so it's a little bit hard to see here just in our view window, but the OD here is smaller than the OD up at the top, and same thing for the top section. And I know there are several open source tools for generating things like this automatically. The last time I used one, it didn't account for the tapers, which is why I generally design my own. I don't know if there are ones out there now that do, but I still like having complete control over all the different features of the part. So I generally design my own. And I also put a bevel on the ends here just to make it easy to start into either the vacuum hose or the brush. And if this is your first time on my channel, I do all functional prints. I do a new one every single Friday, and I give away all the STLs for free. This one is no different. I will make sure that there is a link to this STL down in the description of the video. And I'll link to my site also as well, fpfdesigns.com. It's probably the easiest way to see a list of all the designs that I have done, and they will take you to the respective YouTube videos as well. But please check out the videos list on my YouTube channel. See if there's anything that interests you. I do everything from stuff in the shop, stuff outside, stuff around the house, from scratch designs. Yeah, hope to see you back on the channel if this is your first time here. All right, now that we've got the design done, I think we'll run the Bambu P1S right here on the workbench. But the Prusa, I'm going to take back down to the usual spot that this guy sits because I have a Raspberry Pi that plugs into this guy and makes the actual printing experience of this one a lot better. In fact, you can print right from Prusa Slicer. You can send the job right from Prusa Slicer if you have a Raspberry Pi connected to your printer. So I'm going to run this guy back down to my basement where my 3D printing lab is, and we'll get this guy plugged in. And for this guy, I just got to figure out how to add it to my Bambu Lab Studio or Bambu Studio app so that we can send it to this printer. All right, and here we are in Bambu Studio, and I paired the printer with that QR code with the Bambu Handy app on my phone, so it is now set up on my Wi-Fi and shows up in my printer list in Bambu Studio. And say what you want about the possibility of some of your data disappearing off the cloud into someone else's hands. I'll tell you what, it is really convenient that things just work. You know, I spent probably a couple hours setting up Octoprint on the Raspberry Pi to get similar functionality on my Prusa printer, and it does work pretty well, but you have the additional cost of the Raspberry Pi, and those things have really gotten pricey. as well as the setup time to get things working. This just worked out of the box. So for someone that's new to the hobby, or someone that's just tired of messing with things, or that has to set up a whole farm of printers, that is worth something. All right, let's, you know what? Let's see how the camera looks. Loading. All right. Gonna trust that it is, oh, there we go, okay. You know, it definitely does not look as good as the camera on my X1 Carbon, but it still looks pretty good. I mean, this is certainly high resolution enough to see if we have a problem with the print. At least I think so. I'll let you know, or I'll bring you guys back when we start the print and you can kind of see what's going on here. But let's get down to business. Let's see, prepare, we'll bring in our STL, and let's see, we want to get this on this face because we have our bevel is in the wrong direction. We'd have an overhang here if we printed it like this. So we'll flip this guy around. That looks good. Let's see, I want to make sure we're using the same settings on each printer, so this is fair. So we're on 0.2 millimeter layer height. That's fine. We'll leave that alone. Let's see, wall loops. We'll do 6, sounds like a lot. Let's do 3. But the shell layers actually doesn't sound like enough to me. We're gonna go 5 on those. And our infill at 25%, that sounds fine. And I don't think there's anything else that's unusual in here. You can see I haven't changed any of the other settings. Let's slice it and see what it looks like. All right. See, remember this number, we're going to use 22.94 grams of filament for this print, sliced in Bambu Studio, and our total time looks like 54 minutes and 24 seconds. And I think all we have to do is hit print plate. Sending print job through cloud service. It's important to note you can actually print to this printer without using any of this stuff. You can either put your STLs right on the SD card and print from there, or there's a LAN only mode so your stuff doesn't actually go out to the cloud. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm not printing, I mean, this is a vacuum adapter. I don't care if the Chinese government prints out my vacuum adapter and hangs it on the wall in the presidential suite or whatever the head guy's title is. I just don't care, you know, and I don't think most hobbyists will. But I know other people are going to have different opinions there, and I'm sure they'll let me know down in the comments. All right, while we're waiting for this to heat up, let's go over to Prusa Slicer and get that job set up. All right, so here we are in Prusa Slicer, and let's get the same STL brought in. And yep, we're gonna have to do the same thing. It's not oriented properly. Place on face. Okay, and let's go to print settings. Let's see, what did we do? We did 3 perimeters. We did 5 solid layers, top and bottom. And we did 25% infill. Ooh, we got a different fill pattern here. Let's see, we want to change this to, I think we were grid. Just check. Prepare. Let's see, where is that? Strength? Yep. 25% and grid. 25% and grid. That should be it. Let's slice it. All right, looks like Prusa Slicer has also decided that we don't need a brim, although it has put a small skirt on it. And used filament, 23.9 grams. All right, I found the difference. It's actually in the filament settings. Here, I changed one of them already. I'll change it back. So the density is 1.24 in Bambu Studio. This is really just for statistical purposes. It's just going to calculate the weight of the print based on the density, since it's going by, you know, the rate of speed at which it's pushing through the filament at a known diameter. So we could change this to 1.24. That's not really going to do anything to our print, but the extrusion multiplier in Prusa Slicer defaults to 1, and it defaults to 0.98 in Bambu Studio. So that's going to give us a 2% difference. And just to prove it, I'll make this 0.98. And we'll go to slice it. And there, we are within, I think, 0.1 of a gram now. So question is, do we change it in Prusa? I don't think we do. I think we leave this at the default and we run the job at the default setting. Obviously, I want to make sure our, our outer walls and, our infill, all that stuff matches. But I don't think I'm going to tweak this. There could be other things going on in the firmware of the printer that means that an extrusion multiplier of 1 here is not the same as an extrusion multiplier of 1 on the Bambu printer and vice versa. So I'm going to leave it at its default setting. But otherwise, we are all set to go. All right, and I can send this job right to the printer as well because I have a physical device set up that targets the Raspberry Pi running Octoprint here. So I can actually just hit one button and it is going to upload and use the API in Octoprint to start this print. So we'll do that and I'll bring you back once we got things going. All right, checking on the Bambu Lab printer here, it looks like we are going. The video feed is pretty bad. I don't think we can blame the printer for that though. I think that is, I'm gonna blame the software for that because the printer is on a Wi-Fi network and my desktop is on a wired network. They're both on the same router, but they're different VLANs or different subnets, and the Bambu Studio software is just not smart enough to know that it has a route to the printer. So it just sees they're on separate subnets, and I think it's sending the video feed out to the cloud, probably AWS, and then the app is reading that feed back across the internet. So yeah, total waste of bandwidth, but at least we can see what's going on. I mean, even like this, I can see that we are on the way to having a successful print. We don't have a bed full of spaghetti. All right, while we're printing, it's probably a good time to mention this machine is definitely louder than the Prusa. It's not crazy loud, like it doesn't sound like we're running a table saw in here, but it's louder than the Prusa for sure. Something to consider if you're going to run this in your bedroom or someplace in your house where normally you'd expect to sit and have quiet time. You're not going to have quiet time. It sounds, it sounds about like a laser printer while it's printing. It's like it's that volume level. It's not like, holy crap, what's that sound? But you definitely notice it. Standing here checking out this print, I notice there's a hole in the top of the printer. It's actually a hole that goes down inside the printer. I have no idea what that's for. Comment below if you know why there is a hole in the top of the printer. Is that for maybe cable routing? Like for some reason would you have a cable coming out of the top of the printer? Why is that there? Yeah, there's no hole in that position on my X1 Carbon. All right, they're both done, and I was worried I might have to mark them to tell them apart, but it's pretty easy actually to tell which is which. The one off the Bambu P1S does look noticeably better. I didn't actually expect to see that much of a difference in the prints. This is the same filament, but they do look different. Again, the one off the P1S, it just looks a little better. It's not a huge difference. I mean, I'm happy with the quality of both of these prints, but the print quality of the P1S is just smoother. It's just the surfaces are all smoother. The layer lines are more pronounced in the part off of the Prusa. Let's see how they fit. All right, so here's our brush. So this is the one off the Prusa. There is a noticeable sort of line going up the print here from our where the outer line stopped and started, And I know there's a difference in diameter slightly on the inside of this guy from measuring it. So I want to make sure that we're giving this guy the best chance of fitting in there. We'll line those up. That fits pretty good. It goes almost all the way in there. I could probably force that all the way, but I don't want to go. I don't want it to be stuck. Let's try the one off the Bambu. Yeah, this one has a noticeable line there as well. About the same. I would say it feels about the same to my thumb running across it. So I'll do the same thing, make sure it's lined up with where the diameter is a little bit wider inside this guy. And it goes in smoother. I can actually feel the ridges in the other one going in. This one's smoother, both going in and out. And let me make sure I'm lined up again. This one does go in a little bit further. Yeah, a nice fit on both. No complaints on either one. Let's check the hose end. All right, so here's our hose end. And Bambu one, it's a good fit, goes almost all the way on there. Nice smooth in and out. And the Prusa one slips in a little bit further, not by much. I guess actually it's about the same. It's deceiving because the surface finish of this one off the Bambu is just a bit nicer. But both of these are good, and both of these would work just fine. And I'm tempted to, yeah, that one actually goes in and out easier than this end, which is good, because I think what I'm probably going to do is press this all the way in to this brush fitting, because I'm not going to use this brush fitting on anything else. It's only going to get used on this vacuum, so I might press this guy all the way in and then just hope that it stays in place on this and doesn't work its way loose. So good result from both printers. All right, conclusion time. Both of these parts came out really nicely. If I could only print parts on a P1S or only print parts on my Prusa, I would be happy with the results. Yeah, the one off the P1S looks a little bit better, but they're both completely functional. They both feel really strong. I don't have any issues with either one of these parts. But that's not the whole story, right? So let's talk about a couple different scenarios that you might find yourself in shopping for a printer. Let's say first scenario, you would like to get into the 3D printing hobby. You either have no 3D printer or you've got an old junky one that is, you need to get something new, or it's time to move up to a real printer. Which one to buy? Well, first of all, if you're watching this video and you got either one of these as a gift, stop thinking about it. They're both great printers. You're going to be happy with either one. But if you are looking to open up your wallet and spend some dollars on one or the other, I would say get the P1S. I think you're getting a lot more printer for your money, and you're actually spending less. It's not like it's a few dollars more to get a bunch of additional features. This one actually costs less than the Prusa. Now, I know that's because it's manufactured in China and, doesn't have the same heritage as a Prusa, yada, yada, yada. I know, I get it. There are many just, good faith reasons to buy the Prusa versus the Bambu Lab printer, but at the end of the day, it's your money. I would get the Bambu Lab printer. Now, one caveat I will say, and this caveat applies to all the different scenarios I'm going to talk about. Don't buy this printer if you're not okay with your data going to China. I'm not saying your data is going to China, but whenever I make decisions like this, I always assume the worst case scenario, and I ask myself if I'm okay with that worst case scenario. I'm just going to assume that when I designed this vacuum adapter that the Chinese government had access to it, including when I printed it, what material I printed it with. I just don't care. I know some people are going to care, and they're going to care just on principle. Go ahead and tell me about how you feel about it down in the comments. I'm not trying to trigger you. I'm just saying everyone needs to make their own decision. For me, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm assuming the worst case scenario that they have my data, and I just don't care. I'm a hobbyist. I'm making things like adapters for vacuum hoses and stuff around the shop. I'm not concerned about someone having my data. If I was working in a commercial lab and I was using this to prototype parts for something that my IP was important on, like I didn't want anyone else to have my designs or know what I'm doing, or if I was working on government contracts or something like that for the US or any country, I would not be using this printer. Get something else. It's just not a good idea. I wouldn't even use this in the LAN only mode or with an SD card. I just wouldn't trust it. I just wouldn't. I'd use a Prusa or I'd use some other machine. All right, scenario 2. You have a print farm. You're looking to add some printers, or you're looking to start a print farm. Hands down, get this printer. Don't buy the Prusa. This machine is going to pump out parts at least twice as fast as any of the Prusa printers, and probably 3 to 4 times depending on the print job. This one only came out twice as fast versus the Prusa, but this is not a job that really challenges this printer because it's almost all circular paths. The crazy acceleration time of this printer versus a bed slinger is not really shown off. This printer, even if we did just the same model, but this happened to be a square instead, this would have kicked this out at least 3 times as fast, possibly 4 times as fast. Definitely 4 times as fast if we used their filament, but that's just not a fair comparison. All right, third scenario. You already own a Prusa Mark III or a Mark IV, and this guy came out and everyone's talking about it. Do you need it? No. Unless you want to go faster, your Prusa is just fine. You don't feel like you need to go out and hang with all the cool kids that just got one of these. Unless you're in a hurry for your prints, you don't need this. I'm really interested to see where we go from here. Set aside all of the things about whether you want to buy a printer from China or a printer that sends your data to China aside. I think the release of this printer, as well as the other printers from Bambu Studio or Bambu Lab, sorry, is really a wake-up call to everyone else in the industry. I'm really happy with my Prusa printer, and it's not going anywhere. I'll keep that thing just for printing TPU, if nothing else. It does a great job with TPU, and I've heard some challenges of printing TPU on these machines just because of the way the PTFE tubes are routed and stuff like that. You can't do TPU in the AMS unit. So my Prusa is not going anywhere. I love the machine. Prusa sat on their hands too long. They had every opportunity to continue to lead the market, and they took too long to iterate on their designs. I don't know what those guys are doing over there. I have no insight into how that company is run. I'm not saying they put out a bad product, but historically, they take forever to launch a new printer. They take forever to actually get orders out. I mean, people have waited a year for printers in the past. I think they've gotten better at that, but it's still not great. And their product development life cycle, it's painfully slow. They haven't done anything cool in a long time. I wish they would. I like the company. I don't have anything, I don't have anything against them. Again, I'm very happy with my Prusa printer, but these guys are crushing it. It's a bunch of ex-DJI engineers that were probably also into 3D printing or just into getting paid, probably a mix of both. And they came out with some great products. And again, it's a wake-up call to everyone else in the industry. I'm excited to see the competition coming out. There's a couple other options from Creality. There's another channel I watch, Nathan Builds Robots, I think is the name of the channel. I'll link that down in the description below. Really enjoying his channel. He's done a lot of reviews on the Bambu Lab printers as well, and is very open to sharing his thoughts on Bambu as a company as well as Prusa. Check out his stuff if you haven't. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm running on at this point. It's like 1:30 in the morning here. I really wanted to finish the shoot before I went to bed, and I'm on the verge of not making sense anymore. So if I left you with any questions, please leave me a comment below. This is a small channel. At this point, I'm answering every single comment I get. If you look back at my past videos and somebody asks a question, I answered it. I'm gonna do the same thing on this video unless it gets like crazy out of hand, which again, I've got like a handful of subscribers. I don't think that is going to happen. But any questions you have, please put them down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video at all, if you liked the stuff I'm talking about, you're into functional prints, please check out some of my other videos. I think I've got about 80 functional print videos published at this point over the course of the last year and a half. There's probably something in there you'll like. And if you enjoyed this, you want to see more, you want to hear more about this printer, you want to hear more about functional 3D printing in general, consider hitting that subscribe button. Guys, if you do, I'll see you next Friday.